everybody, and welcome back to one of my favorite collaborations, the Black Feather Intuitive, who is doing the Black Feather Couture Divining a PIP Life. And my favorite crime guy, I almost said crime lord, my favorite crime guy, not crime lord, FBI, stay away, uh, Mark, who does Crime Chronicles over on the YouTube channel Crime Chronicles, and also some earlier seasons on Keone Productions, and you can also catch the Black Feather Intuitive on her YouTube channel, the Black Feather Intuitive. So today we are rehashing in her first three-part series on the kidnapping of Nancy. Now, disclaimer I'm putting out there, Crime Chronicles is a show that normally reports on crimes that have happened and they're done and they're sealed. We don't technically talk about ongoing cases and cases that are started. So Mark is going to give you some relevance on kidnapping cases that have happened in the past. And if he draws some relevance to that, we'll be given that. But he's by no means saying this is what happened and this is what's done. And in terms of the Black Feather Intuitive, the reason why I love her is because she does not do wild speculations. And we're also not doing this for clicks. So we're not TikTok psyching over here. The Black Feather Intuitive gets her intuitive intuition. Things come in, she talks about it, and she's expressing it. But by no means are either of us, including myself, saying one specific person did this or that. So take that as you wish. How are you doing, Mark? How are you doing?
Okay, your only crime lord's doing okay.
And now he's sitting in like looks like a crime lord mansion with the forest
I
in the
got
back.
all that drug money really came in handy.
How many bodies are back? The Black Feather, tune in and see if there's any bodies in Mark's backyard.
No, we got our new sunroom here, and I'm enjoying it. No.
Black Feather Intuitive. You know what the thing is, Stacy? It's that Mark. I picture him like Murder She Wrote. You know, everywhere she went, a crime happened.
Right. So it makes you wonder.
Yeah, he did all of these
Mark all
crimes.
about?
Yeah, he did all these crimes back in the past, and then he became a professor that talks about
No,
these crimes.
I'm not. No, I'm more like a vulture, scavenger than a
Right.
perpetrator. And that's
All right.
people that study crime. They're the kind of people that slow down and look at a wreck, but don't get out and help.
This is true. I'll say this
Study
last
it.
thing, and then we'll get on to the show. A couple weeks ago, two cars smashed into each other in front of me on rush hour, and I looked, and it was like a 20-year-old woman in the first car, and a mom with three kids in the back seat in the second car. So I pull over and go check on them, and as every car is just slowly driving by, I literally throw my hands up. No one's getting out to check.
Yeah, I've done that too. Yeah. I think maybe it has something to do with if the instance I'm talking about sounds like yours. I saw it happen, or I pretty much saw it happen. So then I stopped and helped or checked, whatever. But the same thing. People riding by, and me and the people that saw it got out and helped. But honestly, had I been one of those, I probably would have just kept going too.
Well, you both have lived here. It was morning rush hour, 5 mile an hour traffic, and my reason why people didn't stop is they got to get to work.
Yeah, everybody's just focused on their own stuff,
Now,
I probably be a
what's
rubbernecker
important
though.
to me.
If I'm not going to stop and help, I don't stop and look.
No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. And to be real, you don't need 57,000 people stopping either. But it's nice to know that at least you've got 2 or 3 people. Like stop and check. Is everything okay? Do you need some help? Whatever. And if they say no, we got it. Okay, then off you go.
right?
Well, a couple weeks
And
ago,
it
I
was
was
only
pumping gas at a Circle K, and I heard a horn honking, and I said to the people who were pumping gas next to me, "Who's honking the horn?" And somebody just had a little mishap across the road there, and so we stood there and looked and pumped gas and all that, and then it dawned on me, has anyone called 911? And it turned out the young woman next to me was calling 911 at the time. So you can't assume people are going to do that, but
Right.
I just have a thing if I see, and this is probably bad too. If I see grown 38-year-old male looks like he's got under control, I just keep going. But when I see elderly or I saw two women with a bunch of kids, and I'm like, I got to pull over. But Black Feather, Stacy, what made you, or when did you decide to start doing videos on this particular incident? And when you answer that question, we'll go straight into kind of giving us a recap on the three parts that you've done already.
Sure. So, just I want to say 10 days ago, maybe 11 days ago now, a client, a very good client, reached out to me, sent a text and said, it's awful what's happening to poor Nancy Guthrie. Are you getting anything? Can you call the police and help them? And she was so sweet. She's like, I've worked with you for years now. I believe in your gifts and I think you can help them. And this was just totally out of the blue. In fact, she and I hadn't had any kind of session or whatever in probably 6 months or something like that. So it wasn't like we were, in conversation or whatever. And it was interesting because I have, for 2 years now, I've been, really toying with the idea of getting involved in, more true crime stuff. And obviously that's why Mark, you and I are doing these crossover experiences, because I was like, I want to stretch myself. I want to stretch my, my psychic abilities in this way, because I have a personal interest in sort of this true crime stuff. But I was like, well, the rest of my psychic stuff is always about helping others to, with their transformation and all of those things. And does this really make sense? And, my sensitive Sally ego is like, can I handle all the haters and the trolls and the, the nastiness that can come up, from this kind of thing. And so when this client reached out of the blue and just dropped it in my lap, it was something I had talked about with my therapist literally 3 days before. And I was like, okay, it's a sign. So I said to her, oh, that's very sweet. Thank you so much. I will make a point to tune in tomorrow and see what I get. Well, I went to bed that night thinking, okay, tomorrow after clients or whatever, I'll tap in and see. And I woke up in the morning and had a huge download, lots of imagery on the location of her. And so I just want to put a little bit of a trigger alert here. I'm not going to give, crazy details, but what I thought wasn't a crazy detail, a lot of people reacted to in the first video. But I do not feel that Nancy Guthrie is still with us. And so I was getting information on her location, her current whereabouts. And I got very kind of detailed information about the specific location of her. But I didn't get anything on the situation itself, the kidnapping, the kidnappers, none of that. And I don't follow. I haven't been following this current event at all. So I had just very minimal information. And then people were, asking me for follow-up videos. And I was like, I'd love to give you a follow-up video, but every time I tune in, I get nothing. I get nothing. I get nothing, which I'm not going to make it up, like either I get it or I don't. And Keone, you and I were getting ready to film something yesterday, our Dear Democracy show. And we were talking about the part 1 video that she bit her attacker, and she bit her attacker on the middle finger, the inside of the middle finger. So, and then after the Dear Democracy show, I got another download. And so I wrote down a bunch of information. It was a premeditated kidnapping, but I did get that one person messed up the actual kidnapping. I made a quick video and sent that out, and then I went to sleep. And this morning, I woke up again with a bunch of information. So that was part 3. He has a full lower lip, and it's got a mark, a mole, or a scar. So part 2 is giving a little more detail. I got information around the vehicle. Actually, there were 2 vehicles that, they kind of were transporting her with. I got some, just some random messages. I got a red bandana, something about a red bandana that could be, helpful in the case. And then part 3 is a description of the alleged or supposed kidnappers or whatever. So yeah, with us connecting today, Mark, I'm kind of looking forward to your expertise on these types of kidnapping cases, and maybe with some discussion between the 3 of us, we can maybe generate a little more intuition, a little more psychic guidance that can be of assistance to law enforcement or to anyone who is helping out in the case of Nancy Guthrie.
When we're reporting on crimes, when we're talking about crimes, everything is in its own little bubble, whether it's, a murder case, assassinations that we've talked about. Kidnapping is such a wide thing because there's so many
Yeah,
variables
right.
that can
Well,
happen.
a few thoughts occurred to me when you brought this to me. I mean, I don't have any information that the average person, the general public, doesn't have. And yet, to reiterate your point a while ago, I don't want to come across as kind of going for clicks or exploiting. Uh, I mean, God help these people, what they must be going through. So
Exactly.
all the sympathy and prayers in the world there, I can't imagine what it's like. But I was doing just a little bit of digging here, and as you know, Keone, I've touched on a few kidnapping cases in
Mhm.
my crime chronicles, both here and in the U.S. And abroad. And so, the two things that occurred to me. One is let's take a look at contemporary definitions of kidnapping, as well as some sort of notable historical kidnapping cases throughout history, or recent history, I should say. And as far as what is interesting in a very bad way about this case is that it's really an anomaly. I think you were kind of getting on this a while ago. I don't recall. I did a little Google search last night, and I didn't come across anything. I don't recall any kidnappings for ransom in the United States in a long time. Now, back in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, there were a number of famous kidnapping cases, both in the U.S. and abroad, or especially in Europe that I'm familiar with. For instance, in the United States, you had the Patty Hearst kidnapping in California back in the 70s. You had the kidnapping of Frank Sinatra's son, Frank Sinatra Jr., J. Paul Getty's son, although he was in America, I think that was done in Italy, and a few other, and of course, I guess the most famous kidnapping case in American history, the one that kind of precipitated the rewriting of a lot of statutes, was back in the 1930s with Charles Lindbergh's son, who was kidnapped and murdered. Again, it was a kidnapping that went bad, and the little child was murdered or
Mhm.
killed. Uh, but it's interesting because I sort of thought, I guess a lot of people thought, that kidnapping for ransom was kind of a thing of the past.
Or a foreign country problem. Yeah.
Or there in other countries. Yeah, again, the search that I've done, I didn't turn up any significant kidnapping cases for ransom in the United States in a long time. Now, again, in other countries, it's a different story, I'm sure. But now, and that gets us to the next point. That's the definition of kidnapping. And you have each state has its own definitions, but not much variation really. And also, the federal government has its definition, because very often it is assumed that when a kidnapping takes place, as may be the case with Nancy Guthrie, that the person may have crossed state lines. And at that point, it can become a federal offense, and the FBI can get involved. We don't know if if she was ever taken across state lines or not. Um, Most kidnappings that you hear of nowadays, and again, here's where I'm going to go to in my next broadcast, the onion field, was an abduction. In that case, it was two criminals abducted two law enforcement officers. And if a person is, say, abducted against their will, held against their will, particularly more than 24 hours, is regarded as a kidnapping, although it doesn't have to be 24 hours necessarily. But typically, quote unquote kidnappings nowadays most involve, say, kidnapping for the purposes of sexual assault or murder with no financial gain involved or potential financial gain, the kidnapping, parental kidnapping of a child in a custody dispute or things of that nature. So that's more of your typical kidnapping nowadays than we're seeing apparently is the case with Nancy Guthrie. As far as ransom goes, there have been some media reports that ransom notes have been sent. I guess we don't know if they're legit or not. TMZ's reported it. And what's also going on here is that law enforcement, for understandable reasons, is being very mum about this for obvious reasons. In the past, sometimes law enforcement and the media have worked hand in hand. to help solve kidnapping, the law enforcement will ask the media to report a certain thing, even though it may not be true or maybe half true, to maybe lure the kidnapper out. I think those days are gone because of the way the news media is nowadays. It's so disparate and so many sources out there that you really law enforcement can't trust. That kind of relationship is gone. But also, what can happen is law enforcement can purposely disseminate misinformation in hopes and use the media for that in hopes of doing something to bring the kidnapper out. But again, the
Well,
media is
uh,
smarter than that nowadays too. They know
well,
when they're being used, so it's pretty difficult.
we'll pause right there because I want to hit on that. And people go, well, why would they do that? Especially when it comes to things like serial killers and stuff like that. A lot of these people have egos. And when you're crediting the wrong person, some of them literally take offense that they're that you're going in the wrong direction on the crime that they're
Yeah,
committing.
right.
Plus, it's kind of easier these days, Stacy and Mark, because a lot of people self-report their crimes because they can't stay off of social media. You have somebody committing a crime and they have a distinct tattoo, and next thing you know, they robbed a bank and they're on Facebook showing their money with their tattoo on their neck. So some people have made police work a lot easier.
Well, you
Uh,
go back to the 1990s, so this is not a kidnapping, but you remember this case, you both do. A person whose ego got the best of them, and that was the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, when he published that. I forgot what newspaper did this, or how many newspapers did it. Some newspapers, I think New York Times maybe, published his so-called manifesto, and his brother recognized the Unabomber's
Writing
print, if you
style.
will, and alerted law enforcement that it was his brother that was the Unabomber. So that can happen too. And again, with social media nowadays, though, that very well can happen. It doesn't appear to have happened, at least so far, with this case.
no.
But
Well,
it's a strange case.
if I can interject,
Sure.
it's interesting that you're mentioning that there hasn't been a true case of kidnapping for ransom in quite some time. What I got was that the ransom in Nancy Guthrie's case was an afterthought. So I felt like the intention was to kidnap her because she had seen something that she wasn't supposed to see or heard something she wasn't supposed to hear. And the kidnapping kind of went wrong. And I feel like she had a heart event or a lung event of some kind. And then they were like, oh shit, like, what do we do now? Like, we weren't expecting her to not, sort of be alive. And so I feel like the ransom is actually more of a distraction meant to kind of buy them time. So
If there is indeed a ransom, I would again we're saying there's a ransom based on media reports, but I don't know that law enforcement has verified that there actually has been a ransom demand, and that may be first off it may be true, but there also may be cranks out there who are either trying to get money out of this or just playing a sick practical joke on this on this
Yeah,
family.
because I can't remember the name, but Wavy Surf, I think his channel did a video on this where a guy was doing cryptic YouTube messages where he would say the letters in this kidnapped girl, not kidnapped, missing person's name. And then he would put out numbers. And when they put the numbers together, it was the location. And then that body was found at that location. But when they did backtracked on videos, somehow they did a video that showed that location. And then he went and got the GPS coordinates and he did that. So he was stringing people along. So it's like that's what they say. You never know what people are doing, what they're
Right.
adding to it. You have people. It's kind of sick,
Oh,
it's
it's very
not
sick.
kind of,
You know,
it's extremely
I mean,
sick.
we're now
extremely
Stacy
sick.
and
Yeah,
I are being very careful to say we don't know who did this, et cetera, but we're on
yeah,
social media, and we know there are plenty of people out there who already have the case solved.
yeah.
Unfortunately, they haven't. Unfortunately, they know something law enforcement does not. I guess I don't know, but that's the work, and you can't help but speculate. I mean, I've
Yeah.
gotten questions before. Who do you think did it? Well, I offer my speculation, but that's all it is, and I'm not going to say that now
Hmm.
when people might be if it's just me and barroom talk or
Sure.
talking in the house, that's one thing, but
Yeah.
not in public. No, I won't
Yeah.
speculate.
And that's how I feel about the psychic guidance too, and I said that
Mhm.
I think it was part two, that I said, listen, like, it's psychic intuitive guidance. I could be right, I could be wrong. I get
Mhm.
what I get. I'm not going to make something up. I'm
Yeah.
going to provide it as I receive it. sometimes with psychic guidance, I don't want to say like interpretation is required, but there's a
Mhm.
certain level of having to understand, I might see an object and I see it in a particular space. It might not literally be in that space, but that object is important to, whatever is coming up. So, you know, anyone who's watching this, if there's a psychic who says, I absolutely know, and this is, run, don't walk, like run away,
Yeah.
Right.
because it's
Yeah,
just,
don't
that's
yeah,
not
don't
the way
tell
that
don't
it
tell
is.
social media about it. Go tell law enforcement.
Right.
Well,
Right.
one thing that occurs to me though is I mentioned some famous kidnappings,
Mhm.
both in the U.S., say in Europe, and that's really all I know.
Amsterdam, you did the
And
Heineken kidnapping.
yeah, I was about to say the Heineken kidnapping. It was very obvious. The guy had a lot of money, and it was known he had a lot of money, and he was kind of the symbol of wealth in the Netherlands, where these guys were. In the case of, say, J. Paul Getty's son, who I think was kidnapped, and again, J. Paul Getty was one of the wealthiest men in the world. In the case of an American general who's kidnapped in Italy, the agenda there was purely political. In the case of Patty Hearst in California, the agenda was political and monetary because everyone knew the Hearst family had money, and everyone knew the Hearst family, with all these newspapers and magazines, was also a media outlet. So she was a prime candidate for kidnapping. And what is kind of strange to me is that, first off, if there has been a ransom demand that really is legit, we don't really know it yet. But I would have to ask why the mother of Savannah Guthrie. Now, Savannah Guthrie and her family have more money than you and I do, for sure. But in all honesty, if I were going for a high profile target, first off, I think I would let it be known by now. We did this, we want money, blah, blah, blah. But I would go for the president of NBC, not one of the NBC's employees. And so it was saying to me that while, she's very well off and so forth, but there are more kind of apt targets out there, both for political, entertainment, and monetary reasons. Say the families of people like the Yates, the Zuckerbergs, people like that. And Lord knows, I hope it didn't happen to them either. But I wonder why, of all the people in the United States, why the mother of Savannah Guthrie seems kind of strange to me.
That's why I kind of go with she's getting the intuition of it was an afterthought and that wasn't actually the original plan for doing it. Well,
And I
well,
don't think
well,
that's I don't believe that I don't watch the Today Show. I've seen it, but I
mhm,
don't think that the Guthrie family is necessarily a real political symbol either.
right.
I mean, I know they talk politics and so forth, but not like some people uh, would be, like, say, the son of the president, or a prominent politician, or some
Like Nick
prominent social activist,
Fuentes
or something
or
like
yeah.
that. Yeah.
The whole ransom kidnapping for ransom thing, I feel is an afterthought to buy them time. I feel like the original intent was to create fear. She saw something she wasn't supposed to see. Now, it's just occurring to me as we're talking about this, which is why I love doing these collabs, because when I'm in the moment I receive a lot of things. It could be that it's connected to Savannah, and it's Savannah who saw or heard something she wasn't supposed to hear. And the threat is to take her mother, to either silence her or to get a message to her. But the kidnapping went wrong. And so now there's this extra added, because I don't know that this would have ever even gone public had it gone the way that it was supposed to go. So I feel like the motivation was fear of some kind. Now, was it to scare Savannah Guthrie into submission, or was it, designed to scare Nancy? I don't know. Tapping into what I'm feeling right now, that the rational mind part of me says it would obviously be a message to Samantha, because her mother is, not to say her mother's a nobody. Obviously, she's not. But I mean, she's a
She's not a
nobody in
public
terms
figure.
of, like,
Right.
exactly.
That's that's it's well, you know, the mind of a criminal, right?
Right. Right.
uh when you if you understand how the brain works, it works very irrational when something happens that you didn't plan, you know. And now you're kind of just working on instinct. But what instinct do you have to do something that you've never done?
Right.
That's why, like, someone goes and robs a bank. When if they're a continuous bank robber, they don't make a giant mistake that they would have made the first time. Like every bank robber knows, when you go and rob a bank, you don't shoot anybody, especially the policeman there, or the security guard, because all you're doing is now you're drawing way more attention. But if it's something you're not accustomed to doing
Yeah.
and something happens, your brain reacts quicker than you'd like, and you make rash decisions.
It's panic.
So
It's panic.
Well, what's
yeah,
strange though is that based on what we know
mhm,
and knowing the health of a typical was 83, 84 years old, the
mhm,
typical health of a woman that age, and I think she was on all kind of medications. She was fully capable of living by herself, by all accounts,
mhm,
but she was not, really ambulatory very well, and had some severe, some physical infirmities that would have prevented her from putting up much of a fight.
yeah,
So it's just there's just some very strange things about this case. Now, naturally, law enforcement, I'm sure, although they don't talk to me, thank the Lord, uh, zeroed in first on the people closest to her because that's what you do with any crime, any personal crime, or even a theft. Okay, who was the closest to this person? And so they zeroed in on the family, and of course, people on social media were positive that it was a son-in-law or the daughter, what
yeah,
have you. Uh,
Everybody jumps
the,
to
the
conclusions.
public pronouncements are that the family has been ruled out.
mhm.
Now, we don't know if that is law enforcement really thinks that's the case, or if that's purposeful misinformation. Again, we just don't know, and chances are they don't know. But
Yeah,
I
because
don't think many
sometimes
people really get away with kidnapping though these days. So it's
yeah,
probably a stupid crime as well.
well, 2 things, because 1, sometimes it's misinformation because you lax the person that you really are looking into, and 2, they're doing their due diligence, because I would never commit a crime these days, because the amount of the possibility of being caught on someone's Ring camera driving by
Which is what
some
happened here.
random gas station, some store, and then you start piecing together, like, for instance, you see a brown van, right? You start getting CCTV from all over the area, and then you start mapping together, and you start following this van the entire time. So people who commit these kind of crimes these days are really, really stupid.
And whether this guy was caught on door camera. Now he was
Yeah.
very well covered up, but it was fairly obvious first off that it was a man, which is not a big surprise, or doesn't really narrow things down very much. But yeah, I think you're right too. I'm sure they're searching for CCTV cameras all over the city and that part
Mhm.
of the state in Arizona. And now Stacy lives in Phoenix, not Tucson, but we know that Tucson is a metropolitan area, but we get outside of Tucson and it's wide open spaces. So there are
Mhm.
only so many places in Tucson one can hide,
Yeah.
really. Uh,
My favorite thing, Stacy, is when someone commits these type of crimes and they drive through a toll booth,
Oh,
or
yes,
or
because
through
I
a
mean, you
toll.
just everything is like you got the time,
yeah.
recorded, you've got your face on the camera, you're handing money over. Yeah,
Yes. Why was
it's
your wife in the passenger seat with her head against the window, sir? She was sleeping. Okay. Yep, that's how
yeah.
they yeah. Florida, I'm from Florida, and a lot of kidnapping cases and other cases have been solved from toll cameras, plate
Yeah.
readers, and
But again, a
oh
lot of those
my
cases
god.
you're talking about, because one of the first things we did
Mhm.
on my program, Keone, was Amber Alerts.
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
that's right.
and and how that kind of alerts the kidnappers. But again, a lot of the kidnappings are done again parental kidnappings,
Mhm,
or it's called a kidnapping, but it's really an abduction. And I hate to
mhm,
say it, but either a rape or a murder
mhm,
of a child or someone else who
mhm.
may be known to the person or have some kind of connection. But just a kidnapping for ransom is just a really again kind of a blast from the past in a very unfortunate way. And again, try not to speculate here, but unfortunately, I don't have a great feeling about this. A woman with those kind of health issues who needs medication, who was at infirm, they said there was say blood at the house. Uh, I don't have a good feeling, but I hope, and I don't say this like I hope to God I'm wrong, to say the least.
And she couldn't, fight. You're right. The first episode we did was one of the first episode we did was Amber, who's responsible for the Amber Alert. And the second thing, Stacey, is they always tell you, which is an easy thing to say when you're not the one being abducted. They always say you might as well fight for your life because you never let them take you to a second location.
Right.
Once they take you to another location, your chances just start to dive down. Um, and that's because at the primary location, the more you fight, the more someone can notice or hear or, things like
Because it's
that.
your
So,
environment perceivably,
yeah.
or you have some connection to that environment
Mark, have you ever
perceivably.
heard that? Because I hear that a lot from law enforcement. I hear that a lot, like when I'm watching forensic files and things like that. They always say, don't let them take you to a second location.
I haven't heard that, but it makes sense. Yes. Uh, but
Yeah.
again, sometimes the mind of these kidnappers is
Mhm.
not very very rational. Really just a strange case. I don't know.
Yeah.
You can speculate all day long, but we really
Mhm.
can't solve it yet. I just hope it turns out for the best, or turns out relatively okay. But she's alive, but not a great feeling here, quite frankly.
No. And given all of the circumstances surrounding it and the fact that she's been gone this long, I felt like it was, again, trigger warning. I felt like it was over within about 6 hours of the initial, connection between them. And I feel it's because there was a heart event or a lung event. I kept getting a lot of this area here, and without knowing anything, after my part one and putting that information out there, some people in the comments said that she had a known heart condition. So that would make sense if I'm feeling this. Something transpired, and someone who has some, health issues like that.
I just
So
think the strangest thing here to me is why this person.
Mhm.
Again,
yeah.
Savannah Guthrie is a public figure, but she's not, at least in my view, I don't think she really symbolizes anything politically or socially and so forth, either from the far right or the far left. And while she has quite a bit of money, she is not. There are a lot wealthier people out there who have relatives who are just as vulnerable. So why this person was picked? It's just very,
Well,
very random. Seems like, but
I got
that's what it
today
is.
I got today that when the truth does finally come out, we're all going to be really surprised. Like it's not what we're thinking, and it goes
Could be.
beyond anything that we could comprehend. What that means, I don't know. Some other
It's a
people in the
bizarre case.
comments mentioned something about Savannah and Epstein, survivors, and interviewing Epstein survivors or something like that. With all of the crazy political stuff that's going on, who knows, right? I mean, we're seeing all sorts of things that we couldn't have even fathomed was the case, and now there's some pretty credible evidence to suggest that, yeah, there's been some, eyes wide shut crazy stuff going on. So maybe this is connected, maybe not. From a psychic perspective, to be honest with you, I'm not getting for or against that. And I believe that, to be honest, my guides are probably sparing me from that, because I I'll tune in and get what I need to get. It's not easy for me when I get this information. So my guides and I have kind of worked out a deal where, you give me important information that's going to be helpful, but maybe spare me some of the graphicness, because I am clairvoyant primarily, and I see things in my mind's eye like a
Oh,
so
do
I
I know that? I
yeah.
have a friend that does a year-end review with you, Mark. Her year-end reviews, she sits there in December and January and tells you month by month how your life's gonna lay out, kind of. Last year, my friend did it with her, and every month that she said a specific thing was gonna happen, it happened, so it freaked my friend out. Like, she said, "February, there's gonna be a snake in the grass at your job," and we found out that there was an employee being a double agent at our at our
Mm,
job in February, and she said, "In this month, you're gonna have a mother figure that's gonna come close to, I don't wanna scare you that she's gonna die, but this particular month, she's gonna get really, really sick." And her mom ended up having to be put in a biohazard suit in the hospital that very month.
oof,
And then she always went back to her month. So, Stacy, you did it again. I
yeah.
went and watched the video in January. You told her that that at the end of May, there's gonna be a lot of grief. Well, last night she got a call, and I'm not saying her name, where her sister um, has a couple days to live from cancer that
Oh,
nobody knew about. And so typically when someone dies, you do the funeral, within a week or so, right? Well, they called her. Guess when they want to do the funeral?
Hmm.
The end of
And
May. So she went back to her note. She's like, "Your friend scares the hell out of me." Not to make light of that, but she's just like, "Good night, ladies." But all the good stuff you said happened as well. So it's kind of crazy. Well, Mark, you might be coming down to Morrisville because hey, I've been one of those people that say the world's not going crazy when it comes to crime. We just have access to a lot more information faster than we used to. When
Yes.
all
true.
three of us were growing up, even though we're three different ages, Stacy, where did you grow up?
Canada, Windsor, Ontario,
Right.
Canada, right across from Detroit.
And Mark, where did you grow up?
A small town in Georgia called Griffin, Georgia.
Okay, and I grew up in Miami. If something happened in any of our towns, did we hear about it? You didn't know what happened in Miami unless it was something really huge, but anything
Exactly.
can happen and you hear about it. So 2 nights ago, within half a mile of me, an apartment complex, over 30 apartments, went ablaze.
Mm.
70 people were displaced. There were a million fire trucks. And
Ooh.
simultaneously, while that was happening, somebody right next to my apartment got shot at the crumble cookie and killed.
Oh my
So, of
God.
course, I'm sitting in the bubble like, what is going on?
Yeah. In Morrisville, that happened?
Yeah, right. Mark's been in my area. This is not the
Yeah.
place where you picture people being shot
Are we
and
No.
talking
killed.
about the place that's next to the strip mall,
Yeah, in that plaza with
yeah,
Firebirds, the movie
typical, yeah,
theater.
right, yeah, typical
Yeah,
kind of uh,
Oh my God. I used to
slightly upper class
basically almost
suburban
live
area. Yeah,
there.
yeah.
That's
Somebody got
crazy.
somebody got shot and killed in front of Crumble Cookie.
Oh man. I
So
mean I lived in Morrisville for 6 years of the 11 years that I was in North Carolina, and then I moved to Apex. So I was in Apex for the rest of the time, but I spent so much that Firebirds was one of my hangouts.
yeah, I went
Wow,
there a
that's
couple times too. Yeah,
yeah.
crazy.
So Mark, you might be coming down doing the Crumble Cookie crime.
I don't
Okay.
know.
Yeah.
He said, I don't know. I
Wow.
don't want to. You don't want to be on location.
Yeah, not that location. It sounds like but uh,
Yeah.
bad stuff.
You know
So
what? We could try Keone. Rather than me flying in, we could try you being on location. We do like a little FaceTime or something, and I can see what you're seeing, and maybe we do a little live tune into that. Just a thought.
yeah, I gotta see what happened and who it is. I don't even know the age of the person. Um, because that always determines when I do things like that. Who was the person? What was the age? Because again, the thing that I stay away from is like you and Mark both. The thing I like about both of you is Mark doesn't go to crime locations just to do speculation, conspiracy theories, and all of those things. Like it's not funny, but like when he did the Columbine one, and somebody said there were 17 people
Yeah.
that. And he's like, "Well, you might need to take that information and call the FBI instead of commenting on my YouTube channel."
Yeah.
Right.
Um,
Well, I also when in the James Jordan case, when some guy
yeah,
chimed in and said, "Oh, those guys were innocent," I
yeah,
said, "Well, you need to contact the Innocence Project in North Carolina. They're trying to get these guys out of prison. They can
yeah,
use your information
right.
instead
If
of
you got
telling me
that.
about it on YouTube."
And
But
Yeah.
then Stacy has watched we actually have reaction videos coming out, everyone. And you know what, Stacy? It's funny that we're doing this because you did a series reacting to the TikTok psychic who accused a specific person of committing, I don't know, Mark, if you know about the murders at the university, I think it was the University of Indiana, the 5 students that were murdered. I believe it was Indiana, and Rebecca Schofield is a professor there. And this TikTok psychic took it upon herself to say she was the one that committed the murder and kept giving psychic details on
Oh,
this
she
whole
like
thing.
created this
Oh,
whole elaborate,
she,
like
yeah,
speaking of solving the crime,
yeah,
like on social
yeah.
media. It
Mhm.
was horrifying to
And
watch.
Mark,
well,
she
and
got. Wait, hold on, Mark. I hold on because I want to fill you in. So she got sent cease and desist orders. The police actually found the person who actually did it and confessed to it. And instead of dropping it, she made 3 more videos
Oh yeah,
saying that this
she doubled
woman
down.
is still the one that did it, and then went to court and represented herself, which is always a terrible idea.
Right.
And her defense was her spiritual guides and her tarot readings, not even spiritual guides, her tarot readings and all of that. Well, that was 2 years ago. Well, guess what? She had to go to court again yesterday, and Atozi did an hour and 30-minute live during her court proceedings. But that's the
Oh, interesting.
danger.
So there is some more
Yeah,
resolve now.
that's
Okay.
Well,
the dangers when you go into very specific, talking about specific people, specific races. Like we saw a video in Mark, like Mark said, we know it's a male. But if we didn't have video, you don't get on social media and say, you know, it was a 5'10" Hispanic guy with a mustache.
well,
You
it's these
know?
so-called profilers. Some years back here in Greenville, we had a church that burned.
Mhm.
Two churches actually, but one got the worst end of it.
Mm.
And so there was a guy on our faculty who was only here for 1 year, thank the Lord, and he fancied himself some kind of a profiler. And a quote unquote expert on arson. And so the news media, like they do, call people up and say, want a quote unquote expert opinion. And
Uh,
so this guy bit, and he speculated that it was the work of two or three people in the early 20s, and a few other specifics too. And everything he said was wrong, or turned out to be wrong when they got the guy several months later. And law enforcement was not very happy with this guy. And so that's why the danger, and I'm not talking about racial profiling, like maybe thinking, but the danger of, say, profiling, say,
mhm.
serial killers or arsonists, or the person that commits this type of crime is likely to be this or that. That's very dangerous, and very often it's just flat out wrong. To those reduce the crimes to those kind of stereotypes like that.
Yeah. And it's also one thing to profile off of statistics and data and the profile off of opinions.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing. A lot of FBI profilers, some have been wrong and some have been incredibly right. But a lot of those profilers, those ones that we know the names of, you know, this is them doing research over decades.
Right.
Not just, hey, I went to school and now I'm good at profiling people.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there's also a popular cartoon out there we used to talk about where, because we have so many students who are interested in profiling serial killers, for every one serial killer, there are probably 1,000 profilers chasing after them. And very often the profile turns out to be wrong, or it's so broad that it is meaningless.
Well, that's why I appreciate the professionalism in both of you guys. And by the way, another Jack the Ripper has been found video came up last
Yeah.
week, so we still have that to look forward to on an annual basis. Stacy, let's talk about some new exciting subject matter videos that you've got coming up. We're going to start seeing the crossover series with her and Mark, where they did
Yes.
the OK Corral, the Versace's murders, James Jordan, Charles Manson, OK Corral, and
Okay.
Lizzie Borden. So we have
Yeah.
that series come up. We have the Black Feather Reacts coming up, where we talk about the series of Stacy reacting to all of
To
these
that TikTok
crystal
psychic.
ball. Yeah, and we're gonna do it on the crystal ball toting, fortune hunting psychics out there. We're gonna do reaction videos to those. Uh, as well. We have that coming out. And then please make sure you check into Divinely Decked. Stacey, with those beautiful decks behind her, does a series where she breaks down each deck and explains it to you in grave detail so that you get a great understanding. She puts a lot of work into those videos, and it can teach you a lot, because I understand about nothing when it came to tarot until I started watching those video. And then Mark, this weekend we've got his interview with Professor Jordan over in Dallas, rehashing of a very traumatic episode, as if none of the crime chronicles are traumatic, but a very traumatic episode of African American male sitting in his apartment eating cereal, I believe, and a police woman walked into his apartment thinking it was hers, and he got shot
Yeah.
fatally in Dallas. And then he has the Onion
Oh.
Field coming up, and you'll have to break down that one because I'm not familiar with the Onion Field.
The onion field, interestingly enough, it's about an abduction and a quote unquote
Oh,
kidnapping, and it happened back in March of 1963, which is why I wanted to do it in air it in March. It was the basis of a best-selling book by Joseph Wambaugh, The Onion Field. That's where I got the title from, and also a movie that came out in 1979. And what happened was these two career criminals, to try to make it short, they abducted two police officers, two plainclothes police officers at gunpoint in Los Angeles and forced them to drive them to Bakersfield, California. So you talk about going to your second location, things not working out well. That's what happened. One of the officers was murdered by these two guys, and the other officer got away. And so this chronicles the ordeal, first off the crime itself, and the ordeal of the surviving officer, as well as the two perpetrators here. And like I said, it was the basis of a Joseph Wambaugh did more to merge literature and police work than anybody in history. And it was also the film that was made from that incident was the best film adaptation of a Joseph Wambaugh work, The Onion Field.
Uh-oh. We might, Stacy, we might have to start doing a Black Feather reacts to Crime Chronicles.
Sure.
And I did it.
Yeah.
I did the filming took place in two locations. One was in Los Angeles, the Hollywood area, exactly where it happened, and the layout of that place has not changed. It's changed practically very little. And then 90 miles north, in what was then an onion field and what is now a grape field. So we went to the location where it happened, and with the place where the officer who fled on foot, Carl Hettinger, and got away. He fled to a farmhouse, and that farmhouse is still there and it's still marked.
Wow.
Now, I didn't go to the farmhouse; it's private property, but I did go to the place where he ran to.
Thank you guys for tuning in to another The Black Feather Intuitive crossover with Crime Chronicles with Mark Jones. We'll see you on the next one.
Take care.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Keone.